So I have another pattern review for you today, and this is a bag from Bagstock Designs, and it is called the Flair Crossbody. It was so much fun to make, and so I decided to make another one, and I'm going to walk you through all the components of this bag and a few of the steps to making it, because it was so much fun. I loved it. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the bag. Okay, so the Flair Crossbody bag has a nice long strap. It fits really well under your arm, and it has a lot of storage space. So it first has this front flap, and it is a nice size little pocket area that you can put things that you need to access all the time. I did try putting my phone in it, and you can't snap it closed with my larger phone in case, but you probably could with a smaller phone, and it's not like you can't fit it in there, it just doesn't snap closed nicely. But you do have another zipper pocket here, and it is a nice big pocket, so you would definitely be able to fit any size phone in there and zip it up. Okay, and so that's the two front components, and then inside of your main zipper area, so inside of the main top, you have two slip pockets on one side, and I halved mine completely in half, like as the instructions say, so you could fit some nice things in there. Oh no, you can. I didn't think you would, but you could slip your phone in there if you would like, and then there's plenty of room for other things. It's a nice big open area. And then you have another zipper pocket that is fairly small. But it's a nice size crossbody. It's not too big and bulky. And I think it is adorable. It is a good fit. And because it's a crossbody and with the adjustable strap, you can fit it to where it's comfortable to you. I think I have it about almost in the center. So you could definitely go shorter if you like it up higher, or longer if you'd like it to hang down lower. So I did mine with rivets. That wasn't in the instructions. It's just a look that I like. But I'm going to make another one of these, and I'm just going to change a few things. One, I like the size of the straps. It's a 3/4 inch strap. But I'm going to make the next one a 1 inch, only because I really want to use my rainbow hardware, and it's 1 inch. So I'm going to change the size of the strap. I'm going to add strap ends onto mine just because I want some more rainbow. I'm going to do rivets again. So that's a few of the items you do need in the way of hardware. You need some either D-rings or rectangular rings, your swivels, you need 2 of those, a slider strap. For this, you do need a zipper end because the zipper does extend into the inside and has a zipper end. If you know how to just put like a fabric end on it, you could do that if you wanted to. Like I said, I'm going to do strap ends and rivets. Those are not part of the instructions, and you do need a magnetic snap for that front pocket. And then I'll take you in a little bit closer and walk you through the rest of the components of the bag. You do need 3 different sized zippers, and those are all in the pattern instructions. So I'll bring you in closer to show you some of the other bag components. The only other thing I am changing on mine is I'm going to add another slip pocket onto the back, and it's going to be the same way that the one on the inside is done. I'm just going to have a few extra pieces that I have cut when I bring you in and show you. But other than that, let's jump in and look at the pattern components. And then, okay, so let's take a look at the different components that you'll cut for the bag. I'm not going to show you exact sizes and things like that, because you do need to purchase the pattern for that, but I will walk through some of the pieces that you'll need to cut so you could get an idea of colors. So you're going to need the front side panels for the bag, and those are located here on the side. So we have those cut, and yes, this bag is going to be very similar to the first, just the fabric colors will be different. And so then you'll have the top panel above the zipper. And since these are faux leather, I didn't apply any woven interfacing onto these. So you'll need your flap. So this is the component here, and you can see that I have the fabric portion, the lining of the pocket, the flap here as well, and I did put woven interfacing on that. I'm using Shape Flex for my woven interfacing. I really like working with that. And so then I really do like that the patterns show on it where to attach your hardware. So that's the flap. And then so here is the pattern for the interior slip pocket panel. And as you can see, I noted that I cut 2 linings. So these are going to be my lining fabrics. So these are for the actual portion that came with the pattern. And I did apply the Shape Flex to those. But then I also noted that I cut another exterior for the slip pocket, and that is this one. And then I actually also cut another of the fabric that I'm using on the exterior of the bag, because I wanted to line this pocket and not just leave it as the back of the faux leather. So what this is going to do is I'm going to just have this on the back of the bag so that I could slip something easily in and out there on my bag. So that's the only other component aside from the size of the strap that I'm doing different on this bag. Okay, and so now we're mainly going to be getting into a lot of the pocket components. So this is the exterior zipper pocket panel. So this is the lining of the pocket on the exterior of the bag. And I just wanted to note that there are 2 different size patterns for this, and that's because one is for the fabric and one is for the interfacing, because it does sit a little bit smaller on the back. And then we have some of the panels that are here. So this one is the one that is going to be in the front, the slip pocket panel. So I did put interfacing on that. And then this is the panel that is behind that here. On this bag, I actually did put some Decoville on it to make it a little more firm. I might do that on this one as well. I didn't apply it yet, but I didn't think about it. But I do like how sturdy it is with the Decoville. So those are those components. And then we have the gusset here. So you're going to have one that is your exterior fabric and one that is your lining on the inside of the bag. Isn't that a cute fabric? So the lining on this bag is going to be a lot more dark than on this one. Okay, so we just have a few more pieces here. So this is the interior zipper pocket, and along with those, you will have the pocket facing. This is what you are going to draw on per the measurements for your zipper to sit inside. So that is what that piece is, and they go with those pocket panels, and they did all have woven interfacing on them. And this is for the exterior back panel of your bag, and also what you will use to cut your linings out with. So again, my lining is these black. I have 2 of them, and then they have the woven interfacing on the back. And then the exterior, we just need 1 cut of those. So this is going to be on the back. Instead of doing fabric, I'm doing the faux leather on this next bag I'm doing. So those are all the components of the bag. There are some notes that you could use some foam interfacing. I'm choosing not to do that. I like how the bag feels with just the faux leather. I feel like it gets enough structure from that for me. It'll just depend on your preferences if you choose to do that. I do want to note that the fold line there is for doing your interfacing and things like that, or if you want to get the foam interfacing a little bit out of the seam, they do direct you on that. I absolutely adore the Bagstock Designs bag patterns. They are very, very detailed. If you're new to making bags, I highly suggest purchasing some patterns from them because there are photos of every step along the way. And they are very accurate and very helpful on helping you figure out the steps if you're unsure. So I'm going to jump into applying some of the hardware where I can and getting these straps set up. So I'm going to work on that, and then we'll meet at the sewing machine and start sewing this bag together. Okay, so we're going to get some of these hardware things out of the way. I want to show you, I used some double-sided tape down the center of the strap and brought the raw ends into the middle, and then I've just been folding this up and clipping it so I can sew down either side with a quick top stitch. So that's how I got the strap prepped. So that is all ready to go. And then these are the connectors. I put some double-sided tape down the center of those and just brought them into the middle. We'll top stitch either side of those. And I have the ends of my zipper that is going to go on the top of the bag, folded over per the pattern, and they're stitched down. And then we're just gonna add the zipper end to the other side. So I'm going to put some E600 in the inside of the zipper. And it is a little bit easier to do that if you still have the long needle for that, but I can't find mine. I'm not the only one who uses it in this house. And I don't know about you, but little kids always seem to run off with stuff. Well, she's not super little anymore, but stuff never seems to end up back. So there is a little screw that I'm going to put in that after I let it sit for a second. And then we have some magnetic snap. It's right on it, Fallon. So what I like to do if there is a pattern that has it is I put a little needle there, and we'll do it on this one too. It's just so much easier than measuring. So put a little needle, and then I'll just lift up the paper. Let me move this one out of the way. So I'll just lift up the paper and use a something to mark right where the needle is. So I'll just put a little mark there, and do the same with this one. I have too much stuff going on. Okay, so put a little mark, like move those to the side. And then your pattern will tell you. So this one says this is where the male magnetic snap is going to go. So each of these is going to have a washer. And so the male one goes here, and all you do is use your washer and mark where the prongs are going to go through. So I just line up the circle where I put my needle mark, and then we're just going to take a seam ripper, and we're only going to cut through a little bit of that mark we made because we don't want to go too much. So the female end is going to go on this more square rectangular piece, and you can put some fray check or something like that if you want to. So there's that one, and then we're going to cut this one. Don't cut too long of a little slit. It does not need to be anything excessive because you will be able to get that through. Okay, so then what I like to do is use a little bit of interfacing just to add a barrier. It's not wanting to go through. Sometimes it will for me, just slide through. So I'll put 1 or 2 before my washer goes on. So a washer on each one. You can fold them in or out. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. I've never seen a reason to do one way or the other. You'll see me do both. So just fold that. And then I'll put 1 or 2 to cover it and iron those on. But now we pretty much have all of our hardware pieces. I guess technically we still have a ton of hardware to do because I have a bunch of rivets and strap ends. But this is all the hardware per the pattern. Okay, so I'm going to head to the sewing machine and sew up these straps, and so I'm going to sew up the straps and the connectors, and we'll get those ready and move into more of the pattern. Okay, so we're going to be sewing a top stitch along both sides of our strap connectors. So I have my stitch length set to 3, and I'm just going to go along each side of my connectors. And then we're also going to do that same thing along the strap. So I'm just going to go ahead and start along one side of that as well. So once I get finished going along each side of the strap, we'll start attaching the strap ends and the hardware. Okay, so I have my strap connectors ready. You see I have the square ring on it, and I folded it through it and clipped it in place. And there's 2 of those, and then I have my crossbody strap ready. What I did was I put one end through the swivel, up through, down through, and I put the strap end on so that the bottom folds down along the strap. All you do for the strap ends is just dab a little bit of that same glue you used before if you did the zipper end. Just do a little bit of glue inside, slip it on the strap, and put the screws in. So I'm just going to line up my foot here, and I'm going to go really slow across here. Sometimes my machine won't do it and I just have to rely on rivets. Sometimes it does, so we'll just see what it does today. So I'm just going to go really slow, back stitch. Let's see. Going really slow through here, so I'm gonna snip it off, and instead of back stitch, because sometimes the back stitch is what hangs up my machine, I'm just gonna go straight across real slow. So this is why I typically will try to just use rivets here, but I like to get at least 1 row of stitching to kind of make sure it's secured closed. All right, let me see if it'll. Okay, it's got a few back. So if you are using cotton here and just the interfacing, it'll be a lot easier for your machine to go through it, and you could go ahead and do 2 rows of stitches there. I'm just going to do the 1, and I'm going to go ahead and do the straps here. These aren't as many layers, so it's a little bit easier to come across this. Okay, and so I'm going to go all the way back. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the other, this more near the bottom. So I have a row up here at the top, and I'm going to do another one about where the end of my clip is, and I'm going to do this on both of them. And then we'll string on the swivel hook onto the crossbody strap. Okay, so there are our connectors. So you can just choose what side looks the best that you might show on the side of the bag. I just need to trim some of those threads a little more. And so now we're going to put our strap connectors on here. So we're going to string our swivel on. And then we are going to put the other end up through and then through the other side. Okay. And then we'll put our swivel on. We're going to put our strap end on and sew a little bit of stitches along there too. Okay, so I have the strap completely done with the rivets on. Looks really good. And then I also went ahead and attached the hardware to the gusset. So I put the strap-ins on and the rivets, and that is on each side, and I just followed along with the pattern instructions on how low. You can see where I marked. It's just chalk, so it'll come off. So I marked, and I did do some stitches before attaching the rivets. So we have that in place. So now what we're going to do is we are going to be sewing around our flaps right side together. We're just going to sew around the curved edge, leave the top open to flip, and then we'll be top stitching the flap after flipping. And we're also going to be sewing our front panel that has the female end of the magnet. We're going to be sewing the front panel with the lining right sides together. And we're just going to sew across the top, turn and press it, and top stitch the top of that. And then we have our interior and that extra exterior panel that I'm doing for the slip pocket on the exterior. Right sides together, we're just going to stitch across the top of that. And then the one in the inside, we're going to stitch across just the top and flip those and press it and top stitch along it. This is not in order in the instructions, but I like to get a lot of that stuff out of the way whenever I can. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to stitch along the outside of this, following the seam requirements in the instructions. Okay, so first I'm going to trim close to the seam stitches here. It'll just help clean up the turn. I should have my actual fabric scissors over here, would make this a little bit easier. So I'm just going to turn this, and you may need to snip along the sides. I'll see how it looks. But what we're going to do is top stitch along this after I press it out and get it looking nice. So sometimes I'll turn down my iron, since this is faux leather on one side, and press the fabric side a little bit, but it's looking pretty good. So that'll have an 1/8 of an inch top stitch around it. I'll press all these open and press them with right sides facing out, and we'll top stitch an 1/8 of an inch top stitch across that. And then same with our slip pockets. This one is for the interior slip pocket. I'll press the seams, fold it down. We'll do an 1/8 of an inch top stitch across that. And then this is our new exterior pocket that is not part of the pattern that I'll have the iron turned down low, press that down. This is going to be on the outside, the faux leather, so I'll top stitch an 1/8 of an inch across that as well. Okay, so I did choose to put Decoville on the back of that center panel, and this is where the flap closure is going to be going onto the top of that in a little bit. But right now we need to put the slip pocket on it and base stitch around the sides, bottom, and up the other side. So I'm going to keep my stitch length at 3. That is what I had it at when I top stitched along all of these panels. And I'm just going to go about an 1/8 of an inch and sew around this. Okay, so we have that basted in place, and remember, you don't sew the top because that's the slip pocket. And so now we need to sew our front, bottom, side panels onto each side, and you want to make sure you're sewing them where the curve is at the bottom, curving in. Okay, so these are going to go on each side, and I'm going to put my stitch lengths down at 2.5. I could probably keep them up at 3 because I am going through a lot of layers of, I need to put my other foot on. It's closer to the seam allowance, makes it a little easier for me. So we're just going to sew these in place and then top stitch along each of them to make it look all nice and fancy. Okay, I'm going to back. Trucking right along here, getting it. Okay, so these we're just gonna press open, and I'm gonna switch to my 1/8 foot just because it's easier to me to see that I'm getting my, getting it, where I want it. I don't know what I'm saying. I feel like these are so hard to make sure you're lining them up straight because you can't press it into place quite, like easily or anything like that. So, and on a domestic machine, you're just gonna have to really be okay that your stitches are gonna go a little bit wonky when a lot of seams meet, because it's hard for your machine to get over them. I've tried using my walking foot and it's a little bit easier, but it's so bulky, it's hard to stay straight. So either you gotta be okay with tight stitches in some places, or use a walking foot and have pretty even stitches, but you know, have them not be anywhere near being straight. So the front panel, there you go. We're going to be putting the zipper on it now. So before the zipper, we're going to want to put our flap on. So how we do that is super easy because we're just going to baste it in place. So I'm going to put this up to 3, and you just close it, line up the top, and we're just going to do a 1/8 inch across. Super easy because our zipper, when we do the stitches for there, it's really going to have a lot of stitches that are going to end up holding it in place. We just want to, you know, keep it from shifting around right now. Okay, so there we go. So now we're going to attach the zipper, and that we are going to lay face down and our zipper pull to the left. And I'm just going to use some Wonder Clips to clip that in place. Okay, so we've got some clips in place. And I'm actually going to stitch this at a scant 1/4 inch seam. A little less than what the pattern says because it is a little more comfortable for me with the stitches lining up later, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Okay, so my scant 1/4 inch seam across there. Now what we're going to do is take our pocket, our zipper pocket lining. We want to kind of line it up with the sides of the bag, and I'm going to clip it in place. Okay, and I did a scant 1/4 inch seam because I'm going to flip this and come around on the other side, and I am going to stitch closer to the zipper a little past those stitch lines from before. If you didn't do like a scant 1/4 inch seam, you won't have room to get inside of those stitches. I like doing that because it ensures they don't show on the zipper when we flip it. Just do what you feel comfortable. If you're used to just trying to line up and meet them, and you're really good at meeting them, then do that. I'm not very good at lining up across them, so this is a little more comfortable for me. Okay, so getting close to having the front of this bag finished. Okay, so we're going to try to press all that down, pick our flap up, and get it out of the way, because now we're going to stitch a top stitch across here. So I'm going to switch out my foot maybe. I might need this one. You want to make sure your zipper, the other side of it's out of the way too. But we need to put a top stitch across here to help hold that seam down and just keep everything looking professional and nice and beautiful. I'm going to switch out to my 1/4 inch foot. It'll give me a little more surface area to make sure everything is down and straight. I switch out the feet I'm using a lot, you'll see, because especially on a domestic, using the right foot for the job is pretty important. Okay, so I'm at that 3 stitch length, and I'm going to sew across here the best we can. Like I said, we're going through a ton of layers, and that is hard on a domestic because I have some heavy fabrics here. The Decoville, the faux leather. If you're doing your bag in all cotton, that is probably better if you're on a domestic too. It'll be a little bit easier to manage. But this is doable if you have patience to get to go slow and get through them all. Okay, so there is what the top stitching looks like, and we have that flap to close down, and we have you know, the top of our zipper in place. So we're going to bring up the lining, and we're going to put the top panel on next. So we brought up our lining so it's folded. That'll be the bottom of that zipper pocket. We have the right sides facing together. I clipped it in place, and we're going to sew across here to finish up the pocket. Now we're going to take that front panel and line it up with the sides of the bag, and it's going to go face down on top of the zipper. Okay, so we have that beautiful front of the bag finished, and now we're going to baste along each side so that we can kind of catch the pockets in the side of the pockets, and that will help keep them in place when we're sewing later. So I'm going to do about 1/8 of an inch from the side. It should catch the pockets. And at this point also you could trim off the zipper ends, just line it up with the side of your bag. It'd be easier if I was using some better scissors, but this is what I keep over by my sewing machine. So this side is a little trickier because we're going to sew along this side, and for some reason this side is a little wonky for me, so I'm going to trim off that side as well. But instead of going along the side of the pocket, I'm going to go along the side of the bag. And I'm going to go ahead and go up along my zipper just to keep that in place, because I'm going to be trimming it off. All right. And then I'll go trim this over probably with my rotary cutter if the scissors don't take care of it nicely. It's going to be kind of a rough edge, but it's all going to go in the seam allowance anyway. Okay, so got that done, held the pockets in place, and if you didn't catch all of the pockets on the other side, you could go ahead and sew in a little bit more. You're going to be doing a wider seam allowance. See, mine, I didn't catch hardly any of it, so I'm going to sew from this side and make sure I catch it so that it stays in place for me later. I'm going to go right along the edge of it, because I don't want to go too far and not be in my seam allowance later. It's just a hair off. There we go. I think I caught it all. I just don't want this pocket flapping around and getting in the way of other stitches. So now we got it caught. Everything is looking good. And now we are going to move on to that interior zipper pocket. So what I did was I lined up that zipper facing up on the pocket lining that is facing up as well, and I have my zipper pull to the left. So I'm going to sew across here, and we're just going to baste it with 1/8 of an inch. And then we are going to put the other pocket on as well. We're going to face the pocket lining right side up, and we're going to place our zipper right side up on it, and we're going to try to line up the side of our pockets and pin this. And so now our zipper pull is on the right. And we're just going to sew across here, basting it in place. We're just kind of getting it ready for that panel that we prepped at the very beginning. or that I showed you that was prepped. We didn't really prep it. I just showed you that I got it ready. Okay, I'm just gonna clip my threads. Okay, so here is how this looks, and it does seem kind of funny, but if you think about it, when you open up this zipper in the pocket, you're going to want to see the pretty lining of your fabric. So it is right, even though it seems like it's a little wrong. Okay, so what we need is we need this little piece that we prepped earlier, and I need my foot that has the red line. I like to follow along with that center red line when I'm doing this part, and you'll see why in a minute. And then what we're going to need is one of our linings. I'm going to grab both of them because we can go ahead and put that lining pocket on after we finish this part. So, all right, so we got that in the center per the pattern. I'm going to put pins here. And what we're going to do is just sew along the outer lines we drew. So kind of like a rectangle, we're just going to sew around the outer lines. And to make sure, I've done this a million times, but sometimes I'm like, oh, am I doing it right? Because it seems so weird. Okay, so yep, we're going to follow along that outer green rectangle that we drew so carefully on here. I'm going to back stitch because we really want to hold that in place. Okay, so got there, back stitch. Take our pins out because I can't tell you how many times I've left those in and then started flipping this and poked myself. Okay, so I'm going to just snip off these threads. I have like a beautiful pile of threads going on the other side. And so I'm going to use my seam ripper, and I'm going to start opening up that middle line we drew. And once I get it open enough, I'll use my little scissors. You're going to want to use some nice, small, sharp scissors. And I'm just going to cut up to that triangle that we drew on the corner and snip each side of the triangle up to the corner of where the threads are, but do not snip through the threads because that's going to hold your little window here for the zipper in place. So up to that point of the triangle and then up to the corner, but don't snip the threads. The closer you get without snipping the threads, the nicer this looks when you flip it through, and the less like pulling that you'll have at the corners. So you're just going to flip that panel through, and it's not really easy to do without an iron, so I'm going to have to go over to the iron. But you're going to flip the lining window thing back through here, you see, and then press it good, and then we're going to use this to put over the zipper. Okay, so there we go. I have it all pressed. That's kind of how the back looks. So we're going to lay this over our zipper. You're going to make sure your zipper is in it. I've never done that before where I've put this in place without the zipper being in. That'd be fun to fix though, right? So you're just gonna line it up nicely, make sure that you know you have everything kind of centered, and honestly the farther you have the zipper over to the edge, the kind of easier this whole situation is gonna be. And then you'll just put some pins in place to hold everything. Then we're just gonna sew a box around the fabric, and it'll catch the zipper and kind of be, like I said, this will be your window to hold your zipper panel in place. So I'm gonna keep pinning around this and make sure it looks nice and even, and I'm happy with, you know, how much is showing on each side, that it's kind of centered and everything. And this is the inside of your bag, so I feel like it's not as big of a deal if you kind of make a few goofs here. I mean, I'm not gonna even change out my my thread. I'm gonna keep it that cream color I've been sewing with. And you know, it probably would look better if I changed to I'm gonna change to my zipper foot so I can get closer up there, but it probably would look nicer if I changed to black thread. But like I said, it's the inside of the bag, so I'm honestly, you know, just not as concerned. So I'm gonna sew at a 3 stitch length, and I'm just gonna get as close to the zipper in this box area as I can, trying to make sure I keep everything nice and straight, and we're gonna do it. I do think because my zipper tape happens to be white, that using this white thread isn't going to be horrible, but obviously if I had changed to a black, I wouldn't have to worry about, you know, if my stitches get wonky, which because I chose the white, if it does get wonky, it's going to stand out a lot more. But honestly, sometimes I just don't want to change it all out, because I'm not sure if I have a bobbin with black thread, and then I would have to wind that, and that just seems like a whole lot to do in the middle of this. Am I the only one that feels that way? Like, I just don't want to deal with a new bobbin. It's just a lot. Okay, so you can see how wonky my stitches are because they're nice and black. Or nice and white. It's actually not that bad. I'm just kind of being silly because I want to be. Let's see, we did a box around there. I just left it in so you could see where you're supposed to sew. That's what it is. I was being kind. All right, so we got that. Now, what we're gonna do is see how when we fold this down, we have a little bit of excess here. So what we're gonna do is trim that up so that it's even, and we're going to fold up about a 1/2 inch on each side and press it up. And we're going to sew along the sides of these pockets to close them off. And if you have extra zipper tape hanging outside of that, you can go ahead and trim that as well. Okay, so remember we finished up our zipper pocket, and this is on the inside lining. So what we needed to do was get started on our slip pocket for the lining. And what I did was I pinned the zip pocket to the lining, matching up all those raw edges with the part that we top stitch on the top, and I marked the middle. So what we're gonna do is base stitch along the edge 1/8 inch, and what I like to do is, because we're gonna divide this pocket, stitch 1/8 inch up from the line I drew and come over following the top stitching, based 1/8 inch going down and finishing it up. That will obviously put 2 lines of stitching down the middle. I like the way it looks. If you don't, then just baste along the edge and then come to the middle and stitch down. I went ahead and already did that on the outer pocket that I added on myself. This was not part of the pattern. If you remember, it had that beautiful lining that mimics the front. After we baste this in place, I'm going to attach the zipper to the front of this bag following the instructions given. I start a 1/4 inch over, which I marked, based along, or we're gonna sew along until we get 1 inch from the marked 1/4 inch on the end, and just keep sewing so that it's kind of trails out of, so the zipper kind of trails out of the seam that we're doing. So that is going to be what we do next. As you can see, I already added the gusset and everything onto this bag. It looks beautiful. I'll show you how to do that with the lining, because it's honestly a bit easier to sew the lining. It's not as bulky. And it's just a challenge with the exterior, with the fabrics I'm using, and that just is what it is. If it's your first time making a bag, you will see that depending on the materials you choose, the exterior can be easier, or not easier, but a little bit easy, or extremely hard if you get a lot of that bulk there. From, you know, faux leather, from vinyl, from waxed canvas. There's just some materials that are a bit easier to sew than others. Okay, so I'm gonna press this really quick because that'll just get rid of my line I marked there. All right, and there's how that looks. I like the look of the 2 lines going down the center. That just is what it is. So we have all of our lining pieces finished. We have the interior slip pocket and the interior zipper pocket. And then we have the interior gusset that we will attach. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna do the zipper on the exterior really quick. We're just following the instructions given for that. I am going to, I had it at a top stitch length. I moved that over to a, I'm gonna take that platform off. It'll just be easier to slip this under. So my stitch length now is at 3. So I am just gonna stitch across here. It is not easy because all of the things that we have going on, but you know, you just, some projects you gotta just persevere through. They're not easy, but the end result is always worth it. So I'm gonna back stitch just to make sure all of this holds in place. I'm sewing a 1/4 inch seam because I'm pretty sure that's what the instructions said to do. Here I find a stiletto can help a lot when you remove your clips to hold everything in place. And this is not easy, but you want to stay as straight as possible. And remember, everything's going to trail down when you get to that 1 inch mark. You're going to be tempted to want to pull your zipper back up into place, but remember, you're wanting it to sew out of the seam allowance. So just keep sewing until you get to that 1/4 inch mark that you drew, and then back stitch. Okay, just wanted to make sure I caught out of it. All right, so it's gonna kind of look wonky, but you want it to look that way because it's gonna all make sense at the end. So see, we started at the 1/4 inch area over here and we sewed across, and then it kind of pulled out of the seam as we came over. So I'm going to trim off these and we're going to do the other side. Okay, I find it easy to unzip this to the zipper pull, and you're going to want to, it's going to be inside out over here too. So what I do is I start over here at that mark we did 1/4 inch into the gusset, and we're gonna pin it in place, and then we're gonna pin across. And again, we're gonna trail off over here. But we need to make sure that we don't have this too twisted, because see how I accidentally twisted that weird? So we got to make sure we do it correctly. Okay, so see how I'm kind of flipping this side up to see that it'll zip closed, just kind of to make sure that it looks like we got everything lined up right. It's kind of just like a stressful thing to think about, like, because it just doesn't seem, you know, natural how we're sewing this on. But if we follow and we test to see that it looks like it'll zip up, then hopefully we got it right. So I'm starting at that 1/4 inch line where just barely any of the zipper is in the seam. Because remember, it's going to be pulled slowly out of it. And then we're just going to sew 1/4 inch of across and hope that we did it correctly. I think, you know, honestly, this is I think one of the hardest parts of the pattern, just because it just doesn't seem like you're doing it right. So if you get this portion right, then you're well on your way. Other stuff, obviously, it isn't easy, but it's mainly because, you know, there's a lot of bulk or things like this. This is just like something you have to use that noggin, that brain for. Okay, so now we can kind of see if we did everything correct, because we can zip it closed. So see how it's going to pull up across the top, and then a lot of this over here will be down in the seam allowance. So there we go. So, and then this will tuck into the bag a little bit. All right, so we're gonna figure out how we do the our gusset onto these. So what you're gonna need to do is mark the middle. We already have the middle marked on here because we put that in half. So on here, we're gonna mark the middle. Some people like to, you know, snip a little bit, and that's gonna be inside the seam allowance. I just like to mark because I can be a little heavy-handed with scissors and stuff like that. So we just need to mark that and this one. And then I like to start with the side that has the most bulk and get that out of the way. So what we're gonna do, so for that means this zipper pocket, we're gonna open it because this is how we flip our bag, through that pocket we left open at the bottom. So make sure you open it, and then we're gonna line up those lines that we marked and put some clips. And I face my Wonder Clips facing down toward the lining panel, not the gusset, because I think it's easier to sew this with the gusset up. So we have our middle, and then we're gonna line up the top of the gusset and clip a few there, and then meet everything, because this will ensure that we have everything lined up nicely. I usually do the exterior first because I think it's a lot harder, and I tend to like to get the harder stuff out of the way first. You know, you know, if you do this first, it's kind of nice because it's kind of like a warm up. So whatever way you prefer, I think both of them are hard. Neither of them are easy to do. So just one of those things that if the bag has a gusset, then it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge. All right, so we're just gonna sew following our seam allowance guides from the pattern. Okay, now we're going to slip the exterior bag right side out inside of the lining that has the wrong side out, and we're going to line up the zipper pocket that's on the lining with the back of the bag. And we want to tuck all of this stuff inside, make sure the zipper's inside. We're going to line up the side seams of the gusset with each other and pin this all in place. And it does feel like everything's not gonna fit, but you just gotta maneuver everything and get it all to work. So I'm gonna go around and pin all of this, and then we will sew following our seam allowances around the bag. And then we'll flip it right side out through the pocket that we left open on the bottom and top stitch, and then we'll be done with the bag because we already have the strap finished. And we're in the home stretch. Okay, so everything is pinned, and we're just gonna, as carefully as we possibly can, stitch around this. And this is one part where we're not gonna, there's so many scissors and stuff in there. This is one part where we're not gonna trim the seam allowance. We're just gonna let the seam allowance be. I needed that one. Okay, so we're gonna try our best to stitch evenly along here. It is not going to be easy, but we just do our best. So back stitch, because you really want all these stitches to stay in place. All right, we made it around. So the moment of truth is flipping the bag. Okay, so I can kind of see that my stitches kind of went wild, so hopefully it looks okay in the end. So that zipper that we hopefully left open, I left mine open this time. It doesn't always happen that way. I'm gonna start pulling everything through, and then we'll see what kind of, if we did a good job or if we made a mess. Woohoo! Okay, so I'm gonna shove my lining down in there, but we are gonna need to keep this pocket out for a minute because our final step is, part of it is stitching that closed. I do like to kind of see before I do that if the lining seems to fit in here. Okay, does look good. So I have a few threads here that from the fabric that came out. That happens sometimes. So we're going to stitch this closed, and then we're going to top stitch around the bag. I leave the zipper out while I top stitch around because I don't want to accidentally catch it, but the zipper in the end, I tuck in the bag. I suppose style wise you could leave it out if you wanted to, just kind of up to you. So I'm gonna top stitch this pocket closed because everything looks good. I'm gonna back stitch. Kind of pressing it before like we did really helps the top stitching in the end here. All right, so we're gonna put this pocket in. I'm gonna zip that closed just to keep everything nice. I didn't catch all of it. I'm like, oh, it makes it so much easier, and I didn't even, I could feel the hole when I went through. What a ding dong. Okay, so make sure you catch all of your seams. Thankfully, if I didn't do that right, it would have been fine because that's easy to fix even if I top stitch. You'll find loose threads everywhere, just clean them up. So the last step is top stitching around there. I'm going to put on a different foot, and I'm going to extend up to the 3 and make sure my presser foot is adjusted to make this as easy as possible. Press this all down as much as I can. This is such a pretty bag, you guys. What do you think? That hardware, all of it. Oh my goodness. So cute. So, so cute. And I really love that I added this on the back. Okay, sorry. I'm just, at this stage when you see it pretty much almost done, you can just get so excited about how cute everything turned out. All right. So I usually try to start my top stitching over at a seam. And again, it's just kind of not going to be easy. So you just got to kind of maneuver the best you can and make it work. It's just one of those things that is going to be kind of tricky. All right, so everything looks adorable. There's a few stitches that got longer than I would have liked, but you know, that happens sometimes. But otherwise, woo, bag finished. I love these additional pockets on the back. Let me see. So you could always hold a phone there. Like I said before, the front pocket, it doesn't really, oh, well, nope, it's still a little short on closing, but it's pretty close. If you have a smaller phone or case, then it would probably work fine, but there's just some additional storage on there. You have the slip pocket up front with the magnetic closure. You have a zipper pocket up front. The crossbody bag closes with a zipper, and you know, that tail I usually have it pushed down in after the top stitching. So there we go. Very, very cute. Love this bag. All right, so we have our finished bag, the Flair from the Crossbody from Bagstock Designs. It's such a cute bag with an adjustable strap, so you can let it sit wherever you feel more comfortable. I think it turned out super cute. I love the added pockets on the back. And they're really easy to do because you already have the pattern pieces for it, and it gives that extra storage. You know, the straps, I think the smaller, sleeker strap probably does look a little bit better with this size bag. Again, the only reason I made the one on the second one I made a little wider was just because I really wanted to use that rainbow hardware. Both are really great bags. They're a great size. They're not too big, nice and lightweight for, you know, just doing some quick errands and you don't need to carry a lot. A lot of storage for a small bag. There are two zipper pocket areas, one on the exterior and then the one on the inside. One in here. And then since I added on these two pockets on the outside, you have two on the interior and then all the space on the inside. So it's a great bag and it's a really easy pattern to work through. I don't think it's hard at all. It's called an advanced beginner, and I think that is probably a very accurate description for making this bag. There are a few things that are a little tricky, like going around the corner of the gusset. The top zipper closure is a little bit hard just because of all the bulk around there, and just remembering to pull the zipper out of the seam allowance near the last inch. Depending on the material you use though, all of those steps are going to be a lot easier on you if you aren't using some heavyweight material. So there's that, but it's a cute bag. I love the different fabric options you could do on this center panel just to make it a little more fun and exciting for you and fit your style. There's a lot of different things that you could change up on it if you wanted to, adding extra pockets. So I hope you have fun making this bag. I hope this walkthrough and pattern review was helpful for you, and I'll see you again next time, you guys. Bye.